Chapter 13. Irene's Epiphany.
While I was growing up, my father, Jack, ruled our house with domineering looks and an ever-ready strap. Being stricken with polio at the age of 5 had left him filled with rage at his mother, specifically, and at life in general. The rage toward his mother started because she blamed him for contracting the disease while he played with the little girl upstairs. It was true he'd gotten the polio that way, but no one at the time knew she was infected since she'd only exhibited the milder cold-like symptoms. The truth didn't matter, though. His mother blamed him. My own mother was too afraid to stand up to my father, and my 2 younger brothers and I didn't dare move a muscle without his permission. In between nightly prayers asking God to protect us from him and his rage, I tried to focus on the things in my life I knew were true blessings, like school, which I loved, and my violin lessons, and the fact that most of my teachers were genuinely caring. All in all, it seemed as if God was doing the best that could be done for me, under the circumstances anyway, which was why I got it in my head that I just had to go to Hebrew school. It seemed like a real act of love and gratitude toward God to go through the Jewish ritual of a bat mitzvah and be welcomed as a daughter of the commandment. Normally, boys attended Hebrew school in order to become a bar mitzvah, a son of the commandment, when they turned 13. It wasn't going to be easy to get my father's permission or the extra money needed to attend Hebrew school, but I was determined. I summoned up my courage and, miraculously, prevailed. Getting this opportunity reinforced my belief that God really did hear my prayers. On the appointed bat mitzvah day, I sang and prayed my heart out for God, my family, and myself. That day held the extra blessing of a small miracle so precious, the memory of it helped me accept those messages I heard around the time my Saul died. The bat mitzvah service went great, and after it ended, everyone met for food, wine, and conversation in a reception area just outside the sanctuary. Standing in the crowd, beaming with joy, I watched an old man slowly approach me. We lived in a small community, and I had never seen him before. As he got closer to me, he motioned for everyone in the crowd to quiet down. I could tell by the reactions to his presence that no one in the room knew who he was either, or even where he had come from. Once he'd shushed everyone, he began speaking loudly to us all. This little girl taught me a lesson today. I sat in this synagogue expecting to laugh. I did not believe a girl had the right to participate in a ceremony like this. But in my 90 years of life, I have never heard a boy pray with as much conviction and faith as Irene did today. He paused for a moment to put his hands on my head before continuing. May God bless you as you have been a blessing to all of us today. May God grant you a full and good life. May your life be filled with meaning, and may it be as special as you are. Then he left the synagogue. As far as I know, no one ever saw him again. Unfortunately, this kind of rewarding community recognition was short-lived. Life as a teenager boiled down to trying to be as perfect as possible in order to survive the angst at home. I excelled in my studies, performed well in the school orchestra, dated very little, and did what I could to keep the peace. I counted down the days until I could get away to college, but my father thwarted me once again by forbidding me to live away at school. When he closed this door to me, I ended up at a college near home, but shortly after graduating, I opened another door on my own. I accepted the marriage proposal of a man I'd met on a blind date. We hadn't known each other long, and all we had in common were our Jewish faith and a shared sense of anger and injustice at the world. That didn't matter. My main goal was getting out of that house. And get out I did. My new husband and I lived near my parents in South Florida, which turned out to be nowhere near far enough away. We all fought constantly. The battles got so intense that we decided we'd better put a lot more distance between them and us. It was a smart move survival-wise, but leaving Miami for New Jersey would end up costing me all communication with my family for long periods of time. And it wasn't just my parents I lost. My relationships with my brothers also got caught in the crossfire more than once over the next 23 years. Excommunication was my punishment for growing up and getting out. Even distant relatives were told not to have anything to do with me. Tears came every day for months. Despite my grief, though, I noticed a seed of determination growing inside me, a determination to survive, to be sustained. I rooted that precious seed by saying to myself over and over, I will not let this take me down. I will not apologize for a sin I didn't commit. Looking back, I can see the ways heaven was there for me during my worst moments. Like the time I got a letter from my parents shortly after leaving Florida. In it, they said that since I had violated the commandment to honor thy father and mother, in their eyes I was no longer a daughter to them. Their words made me feel erased and totally alone. Except for God. In that lonely moment, I chose to embrace my faith and hold steady to my vow of never repeating the selfish, raging behavior of my father. That decision kept me walking forward to a place of healing. I eventually got my wounded butt to therapy, which turned out to be the kindest thing I'd ever done for myself. In that office, I was witnessed and attended to. Someone actually wanted to see my suffering stop. What a revolutionary concept that was. Through the therapy, I was able to honor the importance of having been a good enough daughter and a faithful, devoted wife. Once I took that step, I could see how getting married to get out was an exchange of one suffocating experience for another. Next, I began to see how our beautiful 9-month-old son was already beginning to suffer at the hands of our unhealthy marriage. So I gathered up my faith, my determination, and my boy, and I started over once again. My job as a buyer for Macy's provided me with enough money to make this move on my own and get great child care for Matthew. It would be from this humble, temporary home that I would date and later marry my greatest miracle of all, my Saulie. When Saul and I married, there was a sweetness and consistency in the way we loved each other that carried us through our 18 years together. Simple, precious moments connecting us in everyday life like a beautiful string of pearls. I can remember so clearly the image of Saul tumbling and pacing with the phone over one of his many real estate deals. As he did so, I would pass by and gently touch his arm to let him know I was with him. In response, his arm would encircle me as he kissed my head while keeping the rhythm of his negotiations going. We also stayed connected by helping each other in countless small ways. One of my favorites always happened after we had company. We did a lot of entertaining for business and family, and there was always cleaning up to do after everyone went home. Now, my guy was not the kind who would ever leave his wife alone with the cleaning up. In fact, he'd put on his kiss the cook apron, grab a dish towel, and chat and laugh with me while we put the house back in order together. With his hands in soapy water, he'd lean closer to me and, smiling broadly, say, "You think cleaning dishes with me is good? Wait till I get you upstairs. I can't wait to get my hands all over you." Now that's what I call foreplay. Saul's deepest connection to me, though, had everything to do with who he was, not just what he did for and with me. The core reason I loved Saul was I had never known another human being as kind, loving, and filled with integrity throughout his whole being as Saulie was. He truly was my heart. Before my memory starts sounding like a testimonial to Saul and what a saint he was, I want the record set straight. He could also be a pain in the tush at times. I can't for the life of me remember what one particularly good argument we had was all about, but I'll never forget how we stood and ranted at each other from opposite ends of our bedroom. The intensity we brought to those arguments was only matched by our passion for each other. And thank God for that mutual magnetic pull, because it helped move us toward compromise on thorny issues like ex-spouses, in-laws, business crises, and stepchildren. But this one time, we could not seem to find that comfortable middle ground. We were both standing firm with our separate opinions when the front doorbell rang. We both tried leaving the bedroom to answer it, but we reached the door at the same time and jammed up like Keystone Cops. We looked at each other, laughed out loud, and fell into each other's arms. A long, passionate kiss got us away from the argument and into our bed with everything forgotten, including ever seeing who was at the door. If leaving my family of origin behind, getting divorced, and remarrying were not big enough events to navigate, becoming a custodial step-parent to my 2 teenage stepchildren totally topped them all. Especially my stepdaughter Sandy. She'd been through the hell of her parents' divorce and ended up in our custody. For her own safety, mind you. But it was all totally against her own choice. She loved her father very much, but at the same time, she was torn by a fierce loyalty to her mother that wouldn't allow her to accept my son Matthew and me without interfering with that loyalty. Her first words to me, the day she moved into our new home, were, "Now let's get this straight between us. I hate you and I hate your kid, so stay out of my face." I understood that she was speaking from her pain and confusion, but it still hurt to hear her say it, and it was just the thing to get my butt right back into therapy. I told my counselor, "I don't know how to do this, but this kid is going to come out of my home whole, and my marriage is going to thrive if I have to rebuild myself cell by cell to make it happen." This marked the beginning of a counseling marathon. I attended individual sessions while Saul participated weekly in group therapy. We did so much counseling that I remember one day saying, "Saulie, are we a husband and wife or a therapy team? When do we hang out our shingle, for God's sake?" The night before Sandy's wedding, she gave me a gift so wonderful it made all the struggles with our kids worth it. While taking a car ride to ease our pre-wedding jitters, Sandy said to me, "Irene, you know I've tried to break up you and Dad from the day I came to live with you. I'm so glad I didn't succeed. I would never have known what a truly good marriage is if I hadn't lived with you two." I was stunned. My God, I thought, I can't believe I lived to hear this before I went senile. The truth is, our life was filled with these kinds of rewards, so many that I had a hard time picking the best ones to use in this book. But one I knew I'd include was the memory of my son's bar mitzvah, because it was an incredible experience. It was one of Saul's favorite memories, too. We relived the joy of that day more than once during the last years of his life. Of course, I was proud of my son, but that was the only part of the celebration that came easily. And though I love throwing a great party, we had a ton of family politics and community maneuvering to deal with as we planned it. I'm glad we were able to pull the event off with our integrity intact, but I'd like to add that as nice a phrase as blended family is, the truth is more like chopped liver. You might all end up together on the same plate, but everybody gets pounded in the process. We had to make sure Bruce and Sandy were happy. We had to make sure my ex-husband and his new wife were happy. And we had to make sure our friends and every member of our extended families played some active part. Because of the impact this day would have on Matt, Saul and I committed ourselves to make this a truly bonding, loving event. The day of celebration finally arrived. The hall was dressed to the nines, and so were we. It was so rewarding to see everyone getting along peacefully. I couldn't think of a better gift to give my son. As Saul and I stood on the bema with Matthew and the rabbi, I watched my dear Saul place his hand on Matthew's head and look down at him. There was such love in his face for this boy he had raised as his own. Just then he looked over at his two kids. I did too, and it choked me up to see them smiling at my Matthew with real love and warmth. We all ate, drank, lit candles, and danced. When my turn came to get carried in the chair and hoisted high during the hora, I felt absolutely triumphant. I spread my arms wide, delirious with joy as people carried me around the room, laughing, swaying, and clapping their hands. We'd done it, and it was magnificent. Thank God. These skills I learned while blending my family would later open the door to repairing the damage between my parents and me. It all started at a craft show. I was drawn to a table displaying information about the Jersey Battered Women's Service. They were looking for volunteers. When I read the brochure about the signs of battering, I began to see my family as a clear example of that dynamic. Given my history, I really believed I could be of help to others, so I volunteered. During the 6 weeks of intensive education and skills practice, I opened up and shared the pain of my own childhood. I was totally blown away as I began to feel compassion for my father, which led me toward letting go of my victim status and beginning to move on. A year later, I got a phone call from my mother telling me that my father had had a stroke. He'd given her permission to call and tell me about it. Though my initial reaction to her news was to think, "So long, Dad, don't let the door to heaven hit you in the ass on the way out." What I said was, "Mom, you know how I feel about Dad." Her response surprised me almost as much as her phone call. Yes, I do know. Growing up in our home was very grim. I was utterly amazed by her honesty. I filled her in on all the therapy I'd waded through. I told her about my volunteer work on the hotline. "Mom," I said truthfully, "if you want to work on a relationship with me, you're going to have to know right up front that I no longer pretzel myself to be loved by anyone. If I can't speak my truth to you, I won't speak to you at all. You've destroyed the trust between us. You've gone back on your word to me too many times. You're going to have to travel a long way to reconnect with me, but I still love you, and I'm willing to try, if you are." Conversations that followed were so powerful, my mother ended up going into counseling herself. For someone of her generation, this was amazing, and it gave me tremendous respect for her. Slowly, my brothers began extending themselves to her too, which brought her the additional blessing of reuniting with all her grandchildren, some of whom she had not seen for up to 10 years. During the next 5 years, my father became more and more ill. I thought about connecting with him, but his personality hadn't changed, and the hurtful memories were still too strong. A few years before he died, I wrote my father a letter in which I told him that I knew he'd always loved me, but hadn't been able to express that love to me. I told him how hard growing up with him had been, and I ended up by wishing him comfort and ease on the hard road he had ahead of him. My mother told me my father cried when she read him my letter. She kept it and reread it to him a few times before he died, and each time he cried. I had let him off the hook. In so doing, I had empowered myself. No longer invested in holding on to the pain, I was now finally moving on.